Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and I'm here once again with another UCM Vibe Show. And in the waiting room, we have Amy Kruzik, who's going to be talking to us today on the value of mentorship. So, a lot of people go on spiritual paths. They do it by reading books, and they stumble, they fall, they get frustrated, and then they get back on to it a few years after. But a lot of people make mistakes along the way, and it's usually quite a horrible experience for a lot of people. They get frustrated and they feel lonely because there's no one to talk to about their experiences and how they present in the spiritual world. So here's the thing that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about mentorship, and we're going to be actually talking to a mentorship student. That's the first thing, and someone who, to my mind, has taken the most effort out of everybody. If there was a one of those little kindergarten stars I could give to somebody, it would be Amy. So I'm going to bring Amy first on screen. Amy,
I love kindergarten stars.
you used to give us stars out, didn't you? Yeah, you used to give
Yeah.
us stars out.
Yeah.
All right, so Amy used to be a preschool teacher, a kindergarten teacher. And so, first of all, why am I telling you about this? Amy, tell the audience about yourself and your background.
Wow, my background. I never know where to start with my background.
Mm.
But I will say that mother of 2 adult children.
Mhm.
And then I was a stay-at-home mom with them, and then when my second child was in kindergarten, I went back to the school system and worked through there as a learning support
Mhm.
teacher
Mhm.
and assistant. And then I worked my way up through, I did that, I don't know, 7 years. And then I decided to do preschool. So I ended my career as a preschool teacher.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, that is some of the most normal life that I've ever heard. Like, you grew up, you had a lot of siblings,
Yes, I had a lot of
you became a kindergarten teacher, and then all of a sudden, you're here on this podcast with a strange man. So, Amy, the
yeah.
first question I'm going to ask you is like, when did you decide that spirituality was a direction that you might want to actually go in? Any kind of spirituality, for that matter.
Well, I would say first I was raised Catholic,
Oh,
and I
yeah,
did,
that's a sign.
yeah, that's a big sign, right? I did love the Catholic religion at the time. I just thought it was a beautiful uh kind of like just the way that they approach the religion. I never really took in the dogma of it. That never really I didn't like that so much.
Mhm.
I just loved the fact of going to mass and participating in the mass and singing and all of that. I
Amy,
even was I even
Amy,
was yeah.
you are a social butterfly Christian. Is that what you're telling me? Is that what you're telling me? Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, but I also was catechism teacher. I was a
What?
Eucharistic and I was a Eucharistic minister.
What?
Yeah, yeah, in
I
the
have so
Catholic.
many. I have so many
I know
questions.
you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So, anyways, I have to say, mm, that during my growing up years with my dad was very strict Catholic with 9 of us, but by the time he got to me, because I'm number 6,
Hmm.
he was a little more not so much strict in way of being able to go to dances and having boyfriends at 15. So he was kind of yeah, and measured my skirts. He used to measure my sister's skirts.
Like with a tape measure? What are we talking
Yeah,
about?
with a yardstick. Yeah, I know.
Wow.
It's a little
Oh,
humiliating.
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Right, but unfortunately, this is not the show to ask those
I
questions.
know. I
So, how
know.
many siblings did you have, Amy?
I had 8.
8 siblings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And your dad
I
used
was
to measure the skirts and stuff.
of my 3 oldest sisters, yeah. Yeah. Uh, not so cool, not so cool for, high school girls back in the '70s, when the skirts were above the knee. But they, you know what they did? I think they were creative, and I think they had change of clothes.
Oh, yeah, that works.
I think they I think they bypassed him. But
When
hey,
did
you
you
know,
decide? When did you decide to do something different from the Christian religion you grew up in?
well, so then I would say that in my 40s, that's when I thought, what is this all about? I had a friend, and she's like, my first mentorship, or I would say apprenticeship, they called it, was with a guy that was more into metaphysical. And so this was my first time ever learning about your programs
Mm-hmm.
and what they do. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm telling you, he was tough and he didn't let me get away with nothing. I mean, like he called me out on everything I tried to fight for my programs, you know. So so he was great in that way because it got me to today, my
Okay.
understanding, my beliefs.
So how did you get into his class or whatever path that he was promoting?
Yeah, so they had something at the time my friend had said, "Hey, come with me to this, check this guy out." We must have been chatting about like, what do I do now? And maybe there was a point in my life where I knew that I needed something different than what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the opportunity fell in my lap, and I'm like, okay. So we did one-on-one sessions together, and he was showing me the little things and what he does. And then after probably about, I don't know, 6 months, I mean, I quickly learned it, and he kind of said, hey, come on in this apprenticeship group. There's 9 of us in there now, and I think you're ready to come in. Well, that was the rough part because that was where we were with a group of people and we would call each other out on their programs and beliefs, and he would do a lot of like light language, and that's where I first learned about light language. Didn't ever think that I would be able to do that, but I can today. Um, and he just did a lot. He channeled a lot of information. This was a while ago. This was early 2000s, so you know, yeah. So
Understood.
that was my first. I did
Okay.
that for 5 years, and we did retreat weekends once a month, and we were together once a week for 5 years, and I stuck to it. That was my yeah,
Damn, Amy, a
I
5 year
know.
apprenticeship. That's, whenever I hear people talk about, oh, I did a weekend retreat and I master this and I master that, it makes me a little bit,
Yeah,
uh, right?
yeah,
5 years of apprenticeship. Okay,
yeah.
so what were the insights that you took from this? Is it something that you advise to people, or how does that work?
I it was definitely all inner work. Um,
Hmm.
I had to learn not to follow the others, like, "Wow, look at her, look at him. Wow, they're really advancing. I'm not advancing as quickly." It was a lot of that. It was a lot of taking it in for me, not for anybody else, not for um, I don't even know what we would call him. His name was Michael. I'll call him Michael.
Hmm.
We didn't wanna be like him. He wasn't I did put him up on a pedestal, but then I had to knock it down, like, "No, that's not you're not him, and he's not you." So there was a lot of learning, and there was a lot of not comparing, and I mean, he would point all these things out because all of our programs would come up. I mean, there was no doubt. He'd give us things to go in little groups. We'd go in little groups, and we would have to he'd give us this, like, metaphor or something he downloaded, and we had to chat about it, and it was, now that I remember, it was pretty hard to come back because he would be like, "Guys, he'd kinda laugh at us. He was very jovial that way, like, he didn't make it so serious, like, we put fun in it.
Okay, yes, important. Go ahead.
Yeah, important. I would make it serious, like, I would make it serious, so he really helped me with my not so serious attitude.
Okay, so my first question, I suppose, on that score
Yeah,
is why do you think you made the entire concept of spirituality? There are people with sticks up their ass in the
yeah,
community.
yeah,
Laughter is not a very spiritual thing to them, right?
right.
And so my question is, what program was running you at the time that made everything want to be so serious?
Oh, I think I needed to be it was like I needed to be right. I needed to know,
Hmm.
um yeah, it feels like I needed to be right, but there's something else in there too. Um, hmm.
Do you think it would be the program from your Catholic background that anything that is sacred is supposed to be serious?
Oh, well, that could be, but I'm not sure that I did take it serious in my own way. Let's say that. Yes, I did take it serious in my own way. Like we can't miss mass. We had to go, like even on
Mm.
vacation.
Here's the thing that a lot of people think of when they think about join a spiritual community, because there's a lot of bad examples of spiritual community out there, especially in the yoga community. There's been a lot of scandals where the mentors have taken advantage of their students, either financially
Mhm.
and in some really extreme cases, people have been raped, sexually molested,
Yeah.
um, groped, and all that sort of thing. So this is the thing that people have, because there's when we say that there are false leaders out there, I think the thing about putting people on a pedestal is a real problem in today's
Yeah,
society.
it is.
Right. So you said you had put him on a
I
pedestal. At what point in time, and why did you decide to take the mentor off the pedestal?
Yeah. Um, well, he said, "Don't put me on the pedestal," but, your program overrides that because he's the knowing of everything. He's
Hmm.
teaching me, right? And so he did kept saying, "I am not, this is I'm just giving you information that is coming to me," right?
Hmm.
And so, he would keep saying that. What took me off it took me about a couple years. I mean, I was in there for 5 years, so, a couple years before I could really because you come out of there and you're like, "Wow, he just really, knows a lot of things." But what I didn't know was that what was being downloaded into me was gonna come. It was gonna come later. I think people don't realize that it does come. It's not gonna come. His downloads came and we don't know how long it took him to actually be able to present it to people and to have these
Yeah.
mentorships. So I think, also with the mentorship with Andrew I'm in, the downloads come after. To me, that's how it works for me.
Hmm.
Or they like I'll talk about it came during the class
Okay, I
too.
want to do this chronologically. So you were in
Yeah,
this mentorship class with this guy called Michael. What
yeah.
happened after that?
Well, after the 5 years, um, because it wasn't cultish, but it almost felt like Catholic church again. Every day, every week we would come, right? So every week. And I think I came to a point where I learned enough. Now I need to go out into the world and apply all the tools that he's helped me with.
Hmm.
And that's when I decided. And that happened in 2015. And then I went out into the world. I applied my tools to everything. And then I found Andrew in 2020. So there was this 5-year span.
All right. So how did you find Andrew Bartis?
Well, I have to thank COVID for that because because I wouldn't have found him if I didn't. I was just, during COVID, you're like, "What can I watch? What can I find?" And Laura Eisenhower, came up and he was on.
You had cabin
Laura
fever, so you were
Yeah,
all on the
"What
internet.
what are we gonna
Right.
do?" Yeah, so, yeah, I found him on Laura Eisenhower, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, who is this guy?" Like, he felt like the Michael that I went to, the same kind of things.
Hmm.
And so it's like, that feels so similar to what I just went through, but a notch higher, like, okay, this is my next level.
Okay. So, mm, weren't you afraid of getting back into that cult-like behavior again? I mean, like you said that it felt
Yeah,
like a. So what made
no,
you
I
decide
knew.
to make that step?
Yeah, I knew not to make it feel that way to me. again, because I know how that felt to me, even
Hmm.
though it wasn't. I hate to label it as a cult, but these people, we stuck together.
Hmm.
These were the only people we could talk about. It was like esoteric. It was like this little mystery school. We couldn't go out and talk to people about it.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I made sure that I know the feeling inside of what it felt like, and this did not feel like that. I made sure of it.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so you met Andrew Bartzis. Little known fact, guys, Amy avoided me for years.
Yeah, I did. Oh my gosh. I was
Amy, you know we're going to talk about that, right? Actually, I'm trying to decide whether I talk about it now or whether I talk about it like a little bit later on. But anyway, let's just talk about the Andrew
yeah,
thing. So you met Andrew,
yeah.
and
I would
how
just
did you?
listen to him. I would just listen to him, and I
Good.
absorb the information, whatever felt right for me. It's like, "Okay, I like that. I like that piece. Alright." The galactic history, I'm not quite there yet. There were a
Hmm.
lot of things that I didn't understand and still
Hmm.
probably don't. Like, I'm starting to understand entities. I
Give me
didn't
an
even re
example. Give me an example of some
well,
of
it
the
would
things.
be in the spiritual community talks about Syrians and I don't know who I don't even know who the peop
Palladians.
Palladians, okay? Um, I don't I just wasn't one that did that. I
So
don't
you're basically interested in the grassroots of spirituality, the things that make you a developed person. That's what
yeah,
you're interested in. Okay.
that's a yeah.
Okay. So what have you learned in your mentorship that would actually promote that? Like in terms of seeing your programs, do you see them any better?
Oh, yeah, they come right away. They come in right away. They come in right away, and I still have blind spots. Still have blind spots. You can't, I think everybody still has the blind spots, but, they come in quick now because Michael helped me. I can do it like that, and then Andrew does it another different way where you can see the blind spots even crisper, even more clear.
Okay.
So, I can do that, and I can see it, and I can either journal about it or talk to myself about it or, I see the pattern. Oh, that came from my mom or that came from or that's not even mine, the projections, like, that's not even mine. That was never mine.
Oh, so tell me, what program was it that made you try to avoid me for the last how many years? Let's hear it. I want to know which program that is.
Well,
Since we've come a little way since Amy Kruzek from
yeah.
2020.
Hmm.
I'm going to help.
It would again be there's still something with authority.
Uh,
Like,
uh,
I don't know. I know. I didn't like it was like, "Oh, wow, he no, this was just you I'm listening to on the shows. I didn't really know who you were." And I'm like, wow, he just likes he gets in there and just, like, gets to the point and tells people straight out, and I guess that scares me because it's like, wonder what he could see in me. So
and
that and
you're not afraid anymore.
no,
Clearly
I'm
not,
not. No, I'm not.
because you're on a podcast with me right now. So my question, I suppose, my question is, because when I first met you, there was
Yeah,
fair on board. A lot of it, Amy did not want to get on camera. Amy now has a podcast where she
yeah,
shows her face.
yeah,
She talks about her life. She's
yeah,
on the podcast with the guys you try to avoid for how many, God knows how long. Amy is on doing different things. You have Pink Moon Lodge
yeah,
podcast,
with
and
Patty
all of
Lucia.
that is you coming out. Now, a lot of people, when they decide that they're going on the spiritual path, they try to keep it in the closets a lot of the times. They wouldn't necessarily be out with regard to people.
Mhm,
And fear is what runs them a lot of the time. Okay?
yeah.
So, someone who has experienced that kind of internalized fear, tell me, how did you deal with it? How did mentorship help you deal with it?
Oh, being on a podcast? Being
Everything,
everything.
everything.
Okay, well, I have to give credit to Earth Nouveau because that's when I would go. Now, I was scared of some people on on there too, but But let me tell you, it's the tenacity in me that just keeps going.
Mhm.
It takes that. It takes that. It's like, "Keep going, Amy. Just go on the Earth Nouveau." I've been with them this long probably since the beginning, you know, and it was just that weekly thing. It's like, "Just go on." And even if you just sit there, just, you're there. You're there to hold space. Um, so that with Martina and that helped me a lot. I was scared of Maddie too.
You were scared of Maddie. You're scared of me. You're scared of a whole bunch of people. But now you are. You've moved quite a bit. So,
Yeah.
Amy, what happens in the mind that sort of disconnects the fear that we're talking about it, or
Mm,
weren't you monitoring it? Because I remember the first time I met you and you were trying to look invisible on a show
mhm.
that we had with a bunch of people. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
you
this
pointed me
person,
out.
I'm like, this person is trying to look invisible. I suspect that is not going to continue. So now you're here. What happened in the mind? Was it that you just jumped into the
It
deep end of the
freezes.
pool?
My mind freezes. It sometimes gets this freeze, and it's like, "Oh gosh, what do I don't know, I'm gonna sound stupid, I'm gonna" all these programs were coming up. I can't talk about this, I'm not smart enough, I don't know what I'm doing here, what am I you know? So it took all those voices,
Hmm.
and I in the back seat, put him in the back seat. You know, because they can run you, those voices can run you.
Oh yes, they absolutely can.
Yeah. So, I had to really kind of just get at it, like, get at the core of it. And,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
as a little girl, I didn't I didn't really speak that much. So how am I supposed to speak in public? I hated speaking in public. Like,
Hmm.
even as a teacher, not with kids. See, kids are different. Kids to me are so easy for me to speak to.
What's the difference between kids and adults?
Well, I'm just gonna say kids are so much more open, you know. Kids are so much more open. And they just feel more relaxing to me. Adults have their programs running. Kids pretty much don't, the
So
younger ones.
you were afraid of being judged as well.
Well, yeah. And I have a lot of self-judgment.
Point. Well, I understand.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
programs they intersect with each other. So I
Yeah.
suppose here's the thing that I see in a lot in the spiritual community. I deal with people every day, lots of people. Okay,
Yeah.
in the spiritual community, I deal with people in the business world as well. The underlying and overarching thing that I see 9 times out of 10 is this concept of fear, internalized fear,
Yeah.
fear of judgment, fear of how they will look, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And this is a problem. It actually, I think that when you have a lot of fear on board, it's kind of like being handicapped.
Oh, it is. I believe that.
It's kind of like being handicapped because you would like to do things, but then you don't, right?
Well, yeah.
And
There was something in me that pushed there, but what was it that pushed? It was like, I think that would just say, "Just go on, just
mhm,
go on." And whether it was my guides or my guardians or something inside me just said, "Do it. This is for the greater good." And I couldn't see the greater good yet, but I knew that if I did this, that it would happen.
at the start of this program, I said that if I could give Amy a star, I would. And the reason why I say that is that I remember you from a
Yeah,
couple years back. The change under the mentorship program has been dramatic, right? So I'm thinking it's also the experience of actually meeting people.
yeah,
But I want to get back to the concept of fear because the um I think a lot of people are paralyzed by fear. There are lots of people
mhm,
who would like to do businesses
yeah,
in the spiritual community, right? They have great ideas. Some of them have the best ideas, but they're paralyzed. They are afraid of success. They're afraid of failure. They're afraid of getting anywhere onto the internet, like what
mhm,
you're doing right here. There's going to be people who like you, who don't like you, who's
Mm-hmm.
going to probably say mean things to you. And
Yeah.
people don't want to expose themselves to that. And I suppose my response to that always is the same whenever people tell me this stuff. And I say to them, you're going to let a few jackasses stop you from
Yeah.
helping hundreds, thousands of people because of your fear. Okay? Something that you say one day somewhere on some podcast is going to stop somebody from killing themselves. Think
Yeah.
about it that way,
Yeah.
right? We all have certain responsibilities to play. And if God gave you a brain full of great ideas, then
Yeah.
he probably wants you to do something with it. So I hope that just me saying that somebody has
Yeah.
heard that and gets inspired to get off their ass.
Because I'll tell you again, I've read many places that once that idea comes in, it's going to go to somebody else. If you're not
Yep,
going to do it, somebody else is going to do it because that idea wants to be created. And if you're not going to do it, it's going to go. It's going to go somewhere to someone else. So if that's not
absolutely.
incentive, that's like, okay, I'm going to take this. Even if you just do one thing a day, you know, just self tape on a Zoom and tape yourself and watch yourself. I actually had to watch myself and know the things that I do with my hands, or I might lick my lips too much, or I had to kind of like, do just do weird because it's like, well, sometimes I like using my hands because I am half Italian. So, you know. But there's things
Amy,
like
Amy, do you want me to send you the recording so that you can see yourself in this?
but it's good to watch the playback. It's good to watch
It's
the
good to watch you
playback
play back, correct?
because you are your own self-critic.
And you just look for ways of improving yourself.
I
Right.
do.
So let me
I
give you this
do.
story, and it's a
Yeah.
story of someone else in the community.
Yeah.
I want to shout out to Judy the Math,
Mhm.
who's out there. Judy has had one of the hardest stories that I've heard
Yeah.
in the spiritual community. And this young lady is now building something and
Mhm.
putting herself out there and stuff like that. So she was on one of our shows in the past. She shared her story with us, and I'm like, "You go, Judy." And she is
Mhm.
fearless, and she's going forward. And whenever she needs something or whatever advice, she asks the question. And this is what I don't understand. This is when I say mentorship, the value of mentorship on a spiritual path. It's okay to have teachers. You have teachers.
Yeah.
Actually, now that we're talking about it, I might chop
Yeah.
liver. Amy's in a course with me. You need to sit an exam, right? Anyway, as
Okay.
I was
Yes.
saying, right, it's not only about the mentorship, it's about the community,
Mhm.
right? And I'll explain what I say when I say this. You decided to do a mentorship program that thrust you into a community of people. Everybody knows you,
Mhm.
right? Earth
Mhm.
Nouveau knows you, UCM knows you, um, Galactic Historian knows you, Two Feathers knows you. You don't have a choice. You're stuck with us, like the chewing gum at the bottom of your shoe, right? And
Yes.
the,
Yeah.
and the value of being in a mentorship program or learning from other people and so on is, well, they expose you to stuff, okay?
We do.
And sometimes it's not stuff that you like. Like, as an example, Amy was not expecting to do this podcast. I wanted to jumpstart her and stuff like that. People will assist you when you need the help.
Mhm.
When people buy onto a membership, they're not buying onto the mentor. And that's the problem that a lot
No,
of
that mhm. You're
people. Go
buying
ahead.
it for you. You're doing the work for yourself, not for anybody else.
Mhm.
You're here for you. They're just showing you their way of doing it. Now, like it's like for Andrew's mentorship, there were creative things that came from me that I never would have thought that would come out of this human. Like um I don't know, like chanting. I never would have thought that I would use my voice that never wanted to be used as a child up until my late adulthood, you know.
Amy, what have you been chanting?
I would chant the revocations that he gave us in his mentorship.
Are you
And yeah.
are you putting out a Spotify playlist anytime soon?
Oh, I never thought. See, I'm gonna write that down, David. See, that's on my neck. That would be stepping it up.
Yeah, that would be stepping it up, Amy.
Spotify playlist.
All right. So you learned to chant. What else did you learn in your mentorship?
Um, wow. Goodness, it's so hard to describe because it's almost like an experience, like when they went on the trip to Scotland, it's like you just had to be there to experience, It's hard to see.
Mm.
Watching them in Scotland is the same as watching,
Were you jealous?
no,
Not even a little bit.
no,
Mm.
no, no. I was not no, but it was like, it would be, like, cool to be there. That would be cool to be there. But no, there was not jealousy. I was happy, for all the people that,
Mhm.
experienced that. Same as in the mentorship. It's like you have to just be there in that room because it sets this type of energy there,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. It's like and then the flow happens, and then it's almost like, well, what it is he gave us, these revocations. They've never been published, I don't think. And so we begin with there's 8 of them, and then you begin with them, and he has us read them out loud, you know, um, whoever volunteers, and if you don't volunteer, I mean, he's gonna call on you. But, and then question and then questions would arise from those. So it was almost like, "Well, what does this mean? This means this to me. What does it mean?" Um, and we would just do discussions,
Mhm.
around the revocations.
Okay. So these are the practices of mentorship.
Yeah.
I suppose my question is, what are you going to do with all of this knowledge, Amy?
Well, I think it's still percolating. I
Hmm.
think that, um, what I've learned from it was just, show up,
Yeah.
show up every day
Hmm.
for yourself. And yeah,
Yeah, I think a lot of people make mentorship about the mentor and not about the information.
yeah,
One of the major problems that the world has had with regard to mentorship or spiritual leaders or gurus, right? Not, I don't like, because what is a guru? A guru is a teacher. That's what the word means, right?
yeah,
And um, the problem that a lot of people have is that they make it about the individual and not the information. And when that individual strays or has an issue, then the information becomes less valuable as a
yeah,
result of it. Like, let's take a few examples. Like Bikram Choudhury, he's a guy in Hatha Yoga, right? He is wanted in the US for a whole bunch of stuff. People want to sue him and stuff like that,
mhm,
for taking advantage of his female instructors. He was a yoga practitioner and so on. But what he taught, the method of yoga that he taught, is very much valid. The information is independent of the mentor,
it
right?
is.
It
Mhm,
absolutely is. And so what people don't realize is that the mentor is kind of like your big brother trying to help you because
yeah,
he had some growing up to do himself,
yeah.
9 times out of 10. Um,
We can't
and
forget that they're human. We can't forget that they're still human,
correct, correct.
you know?
There's this thing, and I think it comes from religion more than anything else. Because if Jesus Christ were to come back, people put mentors or regular people on the level of the Jesus Christ in the
Mhm.
Bible,
Yeah,
right? The Son of God kind of thing.
yeah.
And it's not a healthy practice. It's
Mm-mm.
not a healthy practice because I think a lot of people tend to look at the mentorship from a position of I need to get closer to this individual, and they want the mentor to do the work for them. Okay, have you
Yeah,
met?
like, yeah, and can I tell you, this is funny to me because here I am, Amy Kruzik, no, I was never, like, in the Zoom room with Andrew. I never went in the Zoom room. I was too afraid of that too. I don't know why. I think because it's so here I am, and then all of a sudden I'm telling you, it just clicked this time last year. It just kind of like with Earth Nouveau and Two Feathers and then Talking Stick Show. I'm like, "What? You want me on your show? Just as a guest? What?" Like, it's those things. I wasn't grasping like this is what I want. I didn't. It's not like grasping at this is what you want. People sometimes hold really too tight onto what I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. No idea I'd be doing a podcast this time last year. No idea.
Yeah.
So, I don't know what you call that, but
I think the thing about it, Amy, is that your development has been rapid, very, right? And it has a lot to do with the fact that people in the spiritual community really appreciate you, and they will absolutely reach out to you because you made yourself known. Even in your fear and unawareness, you were there. You
yeah,
showed up,
I showed up.
right? And we couldn't exactly ignore you, even though you were trying to look invisible in the corner, the corner square of my Zoom screen, right? So we couldn't necessarily ignore you. And we're like, who is this chick, right? Doesn't seem to be a bad person. Everybody help her. And that was like a unanimous. We didn't have a discussion or a meeting about it. We just
Wow.
decided that this is not a bad person, and that is what it is. But a lot of people would not necessarily expose themselves to that.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that whenever we have like live calls and so on, there are people who, and the room is open and so on. You have a reading show tomorrow, which is something we need to talk
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
right? On a live show, right? There are people who will come onto the live show and their cameras off and they don't say anything throughout the entire live show. They're there to listen.
Mm-hmm.
There is nothing wrong with that in and of itself, okay? But if you're there to listen and you're there to learn, learning is an interactive experience, okay? Years ago, well, a couple years ago, Amy was that kind of buzz that came on the show, didn't say anything. Now Amy's having discussions. Amy's
No.
rejecting people's offers and stuff like that. Let's not even get into that. It's
No.
rejecting people's offers and so on. Amy's having debates and so on, and that is a massive change in character. How does it feel to be the Amy now as opposed to the Amy that I met 2 years ago? Or
Oh.
can you tell the difference?
Well, yeah, I could definitely tell a difference. There's confidence. There's more. I value myself
Mm-hmm.
more than back then.
Mm-hmm.
I am still working on the self-judgments that I have of myself. They sneak in a little bit. But the one thing for me is to tell people is to question everything. If you're the one that is always has your camera off, ask yourself why.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get to the root of it. You always question everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you do. That's helped me throughout these last 15 years that I had to question everything. Why am I doing that? Why am I taking this same route to the same place every day? Why aren't I going another way? Oh, because it's easy, because I can just go in autopilot and just drive, instead of
Yeah.
discovering a new path. I don't know. It's just it's not gonna elevate. It's not gonna elevate at all if you don't start asking questions.
We actually have a name for these kinds of people
Yeah.
who want to be invisible and do not step forward. They're the basement metaphysicians, right? And here's the
Mhm.
problem with being a basement metaphysician. You're living in a world of interactivity. The value of mentorship is that A, it exposes you to information, but it also exposes you to other people who have different points of view.
Mhm.
There are a lot of people who want to live in an echo chamber, which is what
Yeah.
Catholicism really is.
Yeah.
If you go to the Catholic Church, there's a priest at the top of the in the pulpit, and he's preaching to the congregation.
Mhm.
Everybody in that congregation agrees with the priest. Nobody's going to sit up and say, "But I don't understand how he could be resurrected." right? Because you know what crucifixion does, right? Right? And why was it 3 days? Then nobody ever stands up and says that.
No, no.
But in the mentorship of like spiritual schools, if you go to a good spiritual school, if you go to a good spiritual school and there's a mentor, you should be able to ask those questions. Okay? And have a debate, right?
Yeah,
Amy and I have been having debates about what's mean and what's not mean for the last few weeks. You
yes,
remember those debates? We've been having debates about what constitute meanness and what doesn't constitute meanness,
yeah,
right? Um, and uh, you should be able to argue with people and still be respected, even though you think of them as your mentor. Okay.
yeah, because you know what? I have to say that I used to think that I'm going against the grain if I spoke up. That was another thing in my first apprenticeship
Hmm.
was I can't speak against him, but I do have these thoughts and I want to ask him these questions. And I'm sure he was open to it, but I told myself that. I'm the one that said, "No, no, you can't go against it," because that was like the Catholic Church, right? You don't go against it.
Hmm. It's the word
So,
of God.
yeah, so I carried that through.
It's the word of God told to you by some man.
Yeah,
Not like the man is completely objective or anything.
right, right, right.
Mhm.
Like, there's so many potentials to everything. I'm learning that too.
I think a lot of the times when people think about mentorship, they think also about costs and they think about
Yeah.
time involvement and so on.
Yes.
Um, a good mentorship is something that should be flexible. Okay, it doesn't matter whether the person is teaching you how to tie your shoelaces. All right. Sometimes people don't have time to tie their shoelaces, so there should be some flexibility about it. Well, there are a lot of people who believe, right, that it's too much effort. Like I don't need a
Mhm.
mentorship. Um, I've seen a lot of people do that. As somebody, I could pretty much tell you that I've had lots of spiritual teachers helping me along the way. It wasn't just me in the basement with a book and a YouTube
Yeah.
channel.
Yeah.
Okay, I could call them out. Marie's, who's the yoga teacher who taught me hatha yoga, as an example at an early age. Um, Marie's and Gilbert Arthur as an example who taught me transcendental meditation,
Yeah.
right? And I could name them out. I have learned from a lot of people. Some of them are very famous people, but I've learned from a lot of people and I respect them. Okay, I absolutely respect them. But when I looked at them, the idea was not to be a follower of them,
Mm-mm.
but I want to be as good as that. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's like a goal. It's like a I wanna be as good as that, but in my own way,
Correct.
you know? Make it your own. Um, what else? I forget what else I was gonna say. You were
And
talking.
that's okay.
And that's okay. This David says that's okay.
You see, you
Um,
just said it. No
oh, I know.
judgment, man.
I
Go ahead.
remember. Okay, so what the mentorship did for me was, um, some of you may know that Andrew's, revocations are so long,
Hmm.
like the Mandela effect. Well, I did not have the endurance to read that. So the mentorship, what it does is it starts out with these little small ones that might take 15 minutes, and then it gradually goes to these really big ones. And by the time I got to the end, because time was a thing for me, it's like, oh my God, this is taking forever. But I knew that was a program. Like I knew, that's a program, Amy. Come on, get over it. Like, okay. So it would be, but on one of the when I discovered that I was chanting, because they can get a little, like, I just keep reading. For me, this is just for me. I have to find a creative way to read. And I tried singing it. I
Hmm.
would try these different ways, and chanting is what came out. And so I remember the one time this other woman and I were supposed to read, and I said, "Oh, can I chant? Do you mind if I chant?" I was only supposed to read halfway through, and this was one of the long ones. Well, Andrew I guess I couldn't see, but he said, let her read all of it. So I chanted this long, I don't know, 30-minute revocation. And I just kept going and I just kept going, and that endurance, and I could do it. And I'm like, okay, I get it. He's not bringing her in. So I knew, like, okay, I got to do this.
And you know what that does? That means that your mental capacity has expanded in that
Yeah.
instant.
Yeah.
Because
Because
your
in the
ability to
beginning,
focus
I
and
couldn't.
expand it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next thing that mentorship is good for, pushing you past your limits.
Yes.
How many people have I heard that have reached a stagnant point in their spirituality?
Yeah.
Not realizing that the mistake you're making is the isolation that you're making. Because
Ah.
when you step out into people, they push you past your limits. They push you
Yes.
past your limits. They bring you into uncomfortable places that you have to swim. Amy has been through a lot of uncomfortable places because
Yes. Let me tell you, many uncomfortable places put on the spot by David himself.
yes, she's been to a lot of uncomfortable places,
Yes, I have.
specifically because when people see the potential inside of you, and it's a lot of it is done in love. When people
Yeah.
see the potential inside of you and they see you getting in your way, they're like, "Hi, you're getting in your way." So you know what? Join me at the edge of the cliff. We're
Yeah.
learning to fly. We're doing some flying lessons today,
Yes.
right?
That's what it feels like. It feels like, are you kidding? We're really gonna fly off this cliff? What? No.
Yeah, we're gonna fly
And
up
then
this
it's
cliff
like,
today.
boom. Yeah. Yeah. But I
And this
have to say, the value of self, and the value of I know the cost, but it takes that to, you know, to bring that value into yourself. You have to pay for these things. You can't always read it out of a book, a
yeah,
$22 book. You have to invest, make the investment in yourself is how I see it.
yeah, that's true.
You know?
The problem is that a lot of people have a lot of negative experiences
Yeah,
in these groups and so on, whether you have a mentor, a guru, whatever else, and they don't have the kind of um, background or the kind of background with regard to the mentor to develop naturally, so to speak. I say that in a nice way
Yeah.
because a lot of people they would have gone to, let's say, a cult type following and whatever else, and it turns them off. They
Yeah.
become paranoid about joining any kind of group, and that is to be understood, right?
Mhm.
Especially if you're coming from religion and so on,
Mhm.
where there's a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of diplomacy, a lot of politics, even in the religion and so on. And
Mhm.
people shy away from that. And that's why you find them in the basements of their houses
Yeah. Yeah.
reading $22 books. All right. But the truth of the matter is that you have to keep trying.
Yeah, you
You,
do.
you can't give up on the entire community because there are a few bad apples or bad actors inside of it.
Yeah, that to me is more like giving up, not looking for another potential of what could be, Think of all the opportunities out there that could be, by giving them a chance.
It's kind of like you have a bad dating experience. You're
Hmm.
gonna give up on men and women for the rest of your life?
Right. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, does it?
It doesn't make sense, but some of them are in a resting kind of state. So they're resting,
Yeah.
hoping that they get back onto the train, okay? Not realizing that the train has gone and left them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember, and I give this story being in a group. Okay, we were learning. Well, I was actually one of the teachers of the group at the time, but also a student. Okay, I was teaching hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
Mhm.
It was a spiritual group. So you're probably wondering what kind of spiritual group teaches hypnosis and hypnotherapy. Let's not get into that. But the fact is, I was in this in this group, and I was one of the teachers, and we had to learn a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, It was practical spirituality, which means that that's why hypnosis was being taught. It was a course, so to speak. Well, it wasn't a course. It was a movement where people were learning practical spirituality, applied spirituality, right? So there was nothing that couldn't be applied in life that wasn't taught, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember somebody running up against a program. One of the students ran up against a program because one of the modules that were being taught, so to speak, ran up against their Christian beliefs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so they disappeared, only to find out when they asked the pastor of their church that it actually didn't run up against their beliefs. And they tried to come back in, but we had moved way past that point by that time, and nobody was going back. In love and so on, we tried to help that individual and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
There is another aspect to the mentorship program, a real danger, and I want to say it to you as well.
Yeah.
The people with the books. Let's say that you're doing, you're into spell work. Let's say you're into invocations, revocations, whatever else.
Yeah.
Let's say you're mixing it with the meditation, and you know that, okay, whatever. Then you go trying stuff out, and you scare the shit out of your own self when something actually works for the first time. And it has happened. It has happened. I was in a TM center, right? And we were doing a stepped up version of TM. Okay. It was a program that we had, a stepped up version, and a lady came inside there, and she was a Reiki teacher. Okay. She's a Reiki master. And she said, I can do the advanced version of this. We're doing deep meditation, like serious meditation. Okay. I can do the advanced version. I've been a Reiki master for blah, blah, blah. How long, right? She didn't want to go through the basics and the fundamentals. So anyway, we were in this hall. There's some statues there, and the sandalwood stuff is burning. We had sandalwood paste. It's a paste that you put on the third eye, just around the third eye, right? Because the inhalation of sandalwood deepens your meditation. So she figures that this would be another one of those group sit down things, right? And then she fell through a hole in her mind. Okay? The same tunnel in our minds that we were all going through, but she didn't have the value of somebody directing her and helping her with the basics process.
Yeah.
Right? So she fell through this hole in her mind, and then the statues around her began to move, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
That just be around the end because we're practicing an open eye practice, right? Where reality is going to distort based on the meditation. So the statues around her began to move, right? And she scared the shit out of herself. She never came back, Amy. She actually started bad talking the group, specifically because she thought that we're in league with the devil and the spirits and so on. Are you a Reiki master? Okay. Like you're dealing with a state. Okay. You're a Reiki master, okay? Like the statues because there was a statue of Kali, a statue of Shiva, and so on. And depending on the state of mind you're in, reality looks different. And I tell people this all the time.
Yeah.
And this is the value of mentorship, because sometimes stuff works.
Yeah.
When you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and no expectations going in. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, honestly. You just kind of are in that little capsule of energy, and it just flows, you know. You have no idea where it's going to go, what questions people are going to ask.
And remember the awakening stage. One day you just wake up and all of a sudden awakening happens, and you find yourself in a very lonely place because there's no one who's going to understand what it is that you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the basement. There are a lot of people who are in the basement who have awakening experiences, who have literally driven themselves mad because they want to practice Kundalini awakening in isolation.
Yeah. Well, no.
That's a bad idea. I'm going to
No,
say
no,
categorically, that's a bad
no,
idea.
no, right,
It's not a
right.
good idea.
And I just want to say too that, um, okay, so how do I say this? Let me think about this. Don't go by what others say.
Hmm.
If you have, like, in this community, you can ask David anything. I used to be afraid to text you, but now it's like, oh, I'm just going to text David this question. you know, um, and say, like the naysayers. I guess they would be called the naysayers. Like,
Mm,
that was okay. That wasn't like. Remember, it's your experience. That was their experience.
yeah.
Like just because they did not like it or wasn't that great. I don't know what I learned. Don't go by that.
Hmm.
What is it here? What does it feel like here? Do you feel like, don't even ask people's opinion. Just do it. Just if it feels here, then do it to me.
Hmm.
Because the naysayers you can lose an opportunity by listening to them.
That is absolutely
Yeah.
100% correct. I wish I could clap for this one. But anyway, listen, it's actually important that the audience actually see someone like you who has moved from one place to another. You have your own podcast and so on.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And where are you going to go from here, Amy?
I have no idea. I don't know. Mars? I don't I don't know. I don't know. That's the thing. It's like it's out there. My future self is already preparing for it.
Hmm.
And I'm open to it.
Well, as you know, the spiritual community has your back. I'm
Yes.
talking about, and I can speak for all the people who have movements out here, whether it be
Yeah.
the two feathers, Andrew, I know has your back, and everybody else has your
Yeah.
back. Okay,
Oh, I
all
love
right,
everybody.
guys, it's time for
Mhm.
our hourly giveaway, and today I will be giving away software that you
Mm.
can design ads with. Okay, the caveat is that you get the software for like about what 5 days, and then you can design as many ads as you want. So I have a Canva like software that I'm going to share with you guys. You have 5 days to make as many ads for your business as you possibly can. You'll find it very useful. You got free stock images inside there. You can also do videos in there as well, right?
Mm.
And yeah, completely
Yeah.
free. So don't pay for stuff if you can just simply scan a QR code.
Right.
You guys ready?
Oh. Yeah. We're ready.
Don't be pulling up your phone. I could just simply give you the link. Please. All right. All
I'm
right, guys.
ready.
You have 10 seconds to scan this QR code. I'm going to count it down. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Going, and gone. All right, Amy. This has been a wonderful discussion on the value of mentorship on the spiritual path.
Yes.
I
Thank
want
you.
you to give these people a way to contact Amy if they have any kinds of
Any
questions.
questions? You can contact me at pinkmoonlodgepodcast.com,
Mhm.
or you can message me on, Messenger. That would be fine too.
You have an email address that they can send an email to let
That
you know
that
that they're in the basement and they need help getting out.
Yes. Yes, send me an email. Yes, we can get you out. We can get you out.
Amy's email is pinkmoonlodgepodcast@gmail.com. I repeat that, pinkmoonlodgepodcast@gmail.com. Or if you need to get in touch with Amy and you don't have the facility to rewatch this recording, you can contact info@universalcitizentv.com. Just a little plug here. If you're not part of the UCM community, please do join. We're doing movie nights.
Mm.
And when I say movie nights, it's like we are going through all those spiritual movies and spiritual books, and seeing what parts of them are valid and what parts of them are not. All right. So for those who are regulars, to our like Zoya and so on, we want to invite you to the next one is on Sunday. Okay. So if you guys are out there, please check out the UCM community. Apart from that,
Thank you,
Amy,
David.
this
Thank
has
you for
been a
having me on.
wonderful show.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming out, and
Yeah.
thank you for talking to me finally.
Yeah, finally.
All right, guys.
Finally.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.